Hey guys, I just went ahead and fully completed Still Wakes the Deep. It took me about 4 hours, so it is definitely on the shorter end of the game, and I even got the achievement for not sprinting a lot. It's called like Walking Simulator or something. So, I'm actually on the longer end of the spectrum actually. I wasn't just sprinting through the game. I was really taking my time, and appreciating all the little details. But let me go ahead and give you my pros, my cons, and then my final verdict of the game. In case you don't know me, I absolutely love and adore horror. It's by far my favorite genre of all mediums. And so this game's actually been on my radar for a while because we don't typically get a lot of these higher budget, higher quality horror games. Most of them are just kind of indie throwaway trash that's like $5, $10 on Steam. This is actually a very high quality, high production value product, and I have to say I really enjoyed my time with it. So let's get into the pros and the cons. The first pro I would say is that visually it does look great. It's not by any means like the best looking video game I've ever seen or anything like that, but it's a very good looking video game. I'm not sure if it's Unreal Engine 5, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it is. The game looks very good. Performance, that's another matter entirely, but visually it looks great. And one of the best things about it is just the attention to detail. You'll see as I'm going into all of these cabins and stuff, and there won't be any real spoilers in this. I'm not going to show any of the actual horror elements. This is all just the, opening of the game. So I don't want to spoil any of that stuff for you. The gameplay might be a little boring as a result, unfortunately. But trust me, you don't want to spoil yourself for any of this stuff. You want to go in as blind as possible. But yeah, the attention to detail here is crazy. Just in all of these cabins, there's all these little teeny pieces of lore for all of the various characters that you're going to meet throughout the game, and it's really cool to see that level of detail in a horror game, especially in something where people are just going to sprint right past. But the graphics are very good. The lighting, especially in most of the areas of the game, is tremendous. It's very good looking. It does a great job of building the atmosphere and the tension and the horror. Really enjoy the game visually. Not the performance, but we'll get into that in the cons. In terms of the gameplay, it's your traditional horror. This is not a survival horror by any means. You're not going to be, fucking throwing hands with anything that you come across. This is most definitely one of those more amnesia types of horror games where you're going to be hiding, or Outlast. You're going to be hiding from the enemies. I am trying to stay as general as possible. And you're going to be trying to not get caught. You're going to be, throwing things to cause distractions. And there's going to be some very light puzzles. But honestly, this game is far more akin to something like Hellblade 2. And this is why I think the game is going to be very divisive, is because gameplay-wise, there's not a ton going on here. This is definitely a narrative-heavy experience and a gameplay-light experience. So, those people that were complaining about Hellblade 2, they're definitely not going to like this game either. It is very light on the gameplay. The vast majority of the gameplay involves just holding W, just going forward. Yeah, you might climb a lot of stuff. You might jump to a lot of things, but none of that really requires any measure of skill. It's more just to keep you interacting with that gameplay experience as you're progressing the narrative. So it's a very narrative-focused game. But I think that the gameplay is fine. I don't think it's bad by any means. I think the stealth, works. I did have a couple moments where like the stealth on the enemies seemed to break a little bit, like they would not be going for my distractions or whatever. And I couldn't really tell if that was because they just adapted to that, which would be cool if that was the case. Like if you're causing too many distractions, if the enemy is going to adapt to that and not fall for them anymore, or if it was because the AI broke. So not too sure, but overall the gameplay is entirely serviceable here, and it does its job and its function of keeping you interacting with the medium enough to further the narrative. Where the game really, really shines is the audio department. The audio in this game is some of the most impressive that I have heard in a very long time. I actually said that about Hellblade 2. This game has better audio than Hellblade 2. It's insanely good. And I'm not just talking about, you know, the sound of the actual oil rig like creaking, you know, as you're walking through, or the sound of things falling apart, or the sound of, you know, possible enemy things. All of those are phenomenal too, but the voice acting here is really, really good. It cannot be understated how good it is. I believe they're Scottish. They're speaking in Gaelic normally, and they carry that into the English with very thick accents, very thick and authentic accents. And thank God for subtitles, because these guys, it's almost at sometimes like they are not even speaking English, like they're speaking an entirely different language. So thank God for the subtitles, and thank God that the subtitles will actually translate stuff. So for example, if they say a wee lad or something, it would translate to like a small boy. You know, the subtitles do a great job of putting it in normal people, you know, English, not crazy Scottish, you know, terminology and diction and stuff like that. But the audio is insanely good here. I cannot sing its praises enough. And in my opinion, the core of creating a good horror experience is the audio. It's not the visuals. You know, I've played wonderful horror games with terrible visuals. I've played wonderful horror games with not the best gameplay. Audio is what really sells horror, and this game does a phenomenal job at selling that horror. It, once again, cannot be understated. And in terms of the narrative, I really like the narrative. This game is essentially Dead Space, minus the space. It is just straight up Dead Space. You are a guy, you know, I'll be generic, but as you play the game yourself, you'll understand more and more what I'm talking about. But you are a dude, just a normal ass dude, put into a horror situation. You have to fix all manner of, you know, horror shit that's going awry on the oil rig. Everyone's just telling you different things to fix. The whole time you're just trying to not get brutally murdered. You're just trying to save people. And yeah, nothing is going according to plan. You're simultaneously the unluckiest and the luckiest motherfucker alive. You're lucky just in the fact that you are alive, and you're unlucky in the fact that if anything possible could go wrong, it most definitely will be going wrong. So I really, really enjoyed the narrative here. Of course, I adore Dead Space, but it did hit on a lot of those Dead Space notes that I really was not expecting when I saw the trailers for the game and stuff like that. And it does a great job. I really felt for a lot of the characters, which is crazy considering it's only a 4-hour experience. So the fact that they could make me feel for, like, the character on screen here, Roy, they could make me feel for him. They could make me feel for the main character you play as, McCleary or Kaz. They could make me feel for his family situation with his wife, Suze, and his kids. I think that cannot be understated how impressive that is to form those types of connections through the narrative in such a small amount of time. But let's get into the negatives, shall we? First thing, the performance is not good here. I did play on everything maxed out, to be fair, but a lot of the times I was barely pushing 60 FPS and 1440p, and that's pretty unacceptable for me with my rig. I have a 4070 Ti Super, a Ryzen 7800X3D, 64 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz DDR5 RAM, and the game was on an NVMe SSD. So, you know, it's like a top 1-2% PC build here, and we're barely pushing 60 FPS on in 1440p. That's not ideal for sure. And there's also no like frame generation or anything like that to boost those frame rates, which I was kind of surprised to see because they have a lot of options, especially in terms of accessibility, which is awesome to see. But the graphics options were definitely a little bit bare. I would expect most new releases to have frame generation now. And another negative is gonna probably be the price for a lot of people. Like for me, I don't care about this, but I need to acknowledge it because a lot of people will have a problem with it. if you guys had a problem with Hellblade 2 being $50 and 6 hours long, then I find it very hard to believe that the average person is not going to have a problem with this game being $35 and 4 hours long. You know, I really, and there's no replayability in this game, and there is replayability in Hellblade 2. So, I feel like that's going to be a negative for a lot of people. Now, for me, I don't really care, especially since all these games are day one Game Pass. I really don't care. That's not a big, like, problem for me at all, but I do want to acknowledge it because people are going to have a problem with it, obviously. And like I said, some people will have a problem with the gameplay. It is just walking point A to, you know, point B for a lot of the time. It's a very narrative-focused game. But with all of that being said, I actually really enjoyed my time with this game. I think it is tremendously good. I enjoyed the world. I enjoyed the enemy and all of the interesting details with the enemy. It's very hard to talk about with the spoilers. I liked all of the characters. The voice acting and the audio design was phenomenal, and visually it was quite stunning. So for me, I would honestly put this at an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great game. You know, for me, a 5 out of 10 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is amazing, and 10 is like a near perfect masterpiece. And overall, I would say that this, for me, sits at an 8. I think it was a great game. I don't at all regret playing it, and I would recommend anybody that enjoys narrative heavy, you know, horror games to definitely give it a go over on Game Pass. You know, I'm not going to be buying this game anytime soon for $35 for, you know, 4 hours, but I think for, you know, snagging it on Game Pass, it's most definitely worth your time. And, you know, it's nice because you can just crank it out in one night and have a wonderful little extended horror movie, essentially. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys thought of the game. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Is it not for you? And let me know if I'm just completely wrong with this review. But thanks for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see all of you in the next video or stream. Bye-bye.